Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. I'm your handsome host, Gene Walzak, and to my right on the screen, I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, with a new ugly background, College Cottrell.
What's going on? I don't know what happened, but I'm liking that. I'm second in this rotation here.
It's just because you're my right, and when I say right, I already want to stop. To my left, I got. Listen, he's got too many nicknames. Uncle Shally, Scholastic Shally, Bill Shallcross. What's poppin', Shally?
What's up, buddy?
Yo, there's a World Series edition. World Series edition. Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. Listen, guys, I couldn't be hype. I couldn't be more hype for the Philadelphia Phillies right now. I couldn't be more hype for the Philadelphia Phillies. After winning 3 straight at home versus the San Diego Padres, the Bryce home run, everything this city has been through following this Phillies team since 2011. I got something special for y'all. If everybody in the chat, cue it up. If you don't mind, Dante, cue the video.
Don't cry. No woman, don't cry.
We're gonna watch this like 7 times.
Little darling, don't shed no tear. No woman, no cry. Good friends we have, and good friends we've lost along the way. In this great future, you can't forget your past. So dry your tears, I say.
I want to run through a wall right now. Listen, if you watch that video and don't want to run through a wall, even as a Guardians fan, Control wants to run through a wall. Phillies episode, guys, your thoughts on the video?
Like I said, I took the 7th time. I've already seen it. I saw it when it popped up on Twitter. Listen, I mean, it's there's no hiding the fact that, baseball is my first passion on this show. I get goosebumps every time I watch it. It's almost a little bit emotional as well. I can't wait for Friday to get here. I really can't.
All right, so we got to talk about Control. What's your thoughts on the video?
Definitely a sweet video. A little bittersweet because it's not my team, and you guys are facing some cheaters. So of course I gotta root for you guys. I was going to do that anyway, but going up against probably my second most hated team in the MLB behind the Yankees, I'm hoping you guys pull it through. I really do.
Listen,
it's got me ready to go.
It's a very, very tough series. It's a very, very tough series. The Houston Astros are, without a doubt, the best team in baseball over the last 5 years. There's no question. They've been to the ALCS for 5 straight years. They've been in the World Series 4 out of the last 5 years. The guys down in Houston can play baseball. Altuve to Bregman to Jordan to their pitching staff. We're going to have our hands full. But one thing I was very excited about, right? They announced the game 1 starters. And from Houston, you were getting Justin Verlander. You knew you were getting that, right? Like that was it. But for the Philadelphia Phillies, they're starting game 1 with Aaron Nola. The Ayatollah of Aaron Nola is starting game 1. And here's a stat that maybe some of the Houston fans don't want to hear. Justin Verlander in 7 World Series games is 0-6 with a 5.62 ERA. So when the moment is big, Mr. Verlander isn't. And I feel like the Philadelphia Phillies can capitalize, take advantage, and steal game 1, and all of a sudden it's a series. Because I'm going to lie to you, I'm way, way more worried about Framber. I'm way more worried about Valdez. Your thoughts, Bill? Game 1, Nola versus Framber. Versus Verlander.
I'll say this. I think a lot of people are automatically assuming Houston's going to win the World Series. Not being a homer, just looking at different things that I always look at, no matter who's playing. I think these teams are very, very comparable. I really do. I think, the sustained success the Astros have had, like you said, 6 straight ALCSs, 4 out of the last 6 years in, the World Series, mind you, some of that is tainted, but I think we match up well with them. I do. I think top to bottom, I think our lineup is just as good as theirs. I think pitching staff, you have, you already mentioned 2 big names for them. You have Framber and you have, Verlander up top. We're going to counter with Nolan Wheeler. Wheeler's been damn near unhittable in the playoffs. So Verlander didn't have a last great start. He had a rough inning. He kind of settled in, and the Yankees left a lot on the board there. They could have really punished him and probably stolen a game there, and they didn't. And he kind of settled in. The problem with Verlander is if he gets on a roll, he's one of those guys that as the game goes, he gets stronger. You have to get to him early. If you get to him early, you can rattle him, which some teams have done. You already mentioned his postseason as well as World Series stats. That's how you get to him. If you don't score off him, you get to the 5th inning or something like that, or longer in the game, he's still going to be throwing high 90s, and he's going to be really tough. Their bullpen is lights out. As great as our bullpen has pitched through spurts and throughout the entire playoffs so far, their bullpen is debatably the best in baseball. There's a familiar face in that bullpen in Hector Neris. But our guys, Alvarado, the combination of Alvarado, Eflin, and Sir Anthony have gotten the job done every time. So they're going to fight, man. It's the one thing that I think everybody loves about this team is, everybody keeps saying 2008, 2008. This team doesn't remind me of 2008 at all. I'll tell you that on paper, the 2008 team was far superior, far superior. It was just a great baseball team. This team reminds me of 1993. The two reminds me of. If you were around back then and followed the Phillies, that was the team with John Kruk and Lenny Dykstra and Darren Dalton and all the guys. Maybe this team definitely has more talent, but the attitude of this team matches the attitude of that team. It was, it's the us against the world. It's, let's go play ball and we're going to kick your ass and we're going to find a way to beat you. They don't quit. You've seen it in moment after moment. You saw it in a bunch of those videos. Every single time they needed a big hit, they got it. And the punctuation mark was with Harper's home run after, we were winning that game and it looked like San Diego was going to come out of nowhere and steal one. And then, swing of his life, comes up, biggest moment in his career, hits a home run to left field, place goes nuts, end of the series.
I just did that. Did that. Oh my God. I just did that. I love that you can see the human emotion from Bryce Harper in that situation. That's such a huge home run. And what makes him such a great player. And by the way, thank you everybody in the chat. Appreciate the happy birthday wishes. Slay, Tiny, Audia, everybody that's been in there. I appreciate it. But when you look at everything that's been broken down, Bryce Harper said in the interview, he goes, he got me in game one. He threw that changeup and then he followed it up with a fastball. He's like, and I remember that at bat. And he threw the changeup that I laid off. And then I knew he was coming back with that fastball. I knew I wasn't seeing that changeup again. And he came back with that fastball high and outside and he barreled it. And man, I'm that guy. That guy.
They talked about it in the post game, and they talked about the previous bat, and they even said, they were like, yeah, A-Rod and Ortiz were talking about it. They said when he laid off the changeup, he knew what was coming. He's like, and at that point, he's like, I wouldn't have pitched to him. He's like, I would have either brought Hader in or try to go after JT or Castellanos. Sorry. They said he was that locked in. Like when he laid off that changeup, which was a good pitch, it was, and he took it like you said, like he knew it was coming. He knew the fastball was coming, and at that point, with as locked in as he is right now, I don't think you can honestly think that you're going to throw that ball by him. And on top of everything else, we've seen it a million times too. Bryce has no problem going opposite field. Their manager talked about it afterwards. They said in 2 years that guy giving up one home run to a left-handed batter. That's why he didn't go to Hader. Easy to second guess it now. I still would have brought Hader in, but I'm glad he didn't. But listen, this is when we started. We got in the Bryce Harper sweepstakes a couple years ago, and it was kind of like the official announcement of rebuilding this team. This is what we were paying for, and he's been worth every goddamn penny of it so far.
He's underpaid.
He's underpaid. He probably is. But I saw the crazy stat over the last 30 years. There's, I believe it's something like 30, or no, it's like 200 and some players have over 40 at bats in the postseason to qualify. And he leads every single one of them in batting average, slugging, and OPS. That's how good of a playoff run he's having right now. It's just crazy. It's got the whole team of destiny versus kind of like the immovable object feel to it. And it's just a matter of
Evil Empire now. It's the new Evil Empire.
Yeah.
Shout out to Coach Dante, Houston fan. Coach Dante, appreciate you in the chat. He's a Houston guy. He's a Texas guy. He's been on his Astros for a while. Very knowledgeable guy. So it's you got to be the enemy right now. We still love you. Control, your thoughts on the series, on ALCS, NLCS. What are your thoughts so far on this and everything going on?
I will say the part that's really cool right now with Bryce is you saw, the Nationals move on from him and then win a World Series, right after he left. It was, I think it's cool to see him be able to be on this stage and like actually produce. And you kind of see with the raw emotion just how much it means to him. Obviously, everybody wants to win, but given all that he's kind of already gone through, obviously the divorce between him and the Nationals wasn't wasn't the greatest. So for him to come to Philly, be as embraced as he is by the fans, and just produce how he is, it's such a cool redemption story to see firsthand. I will say the one thing that has surprised me so far is the one thing that we criticize the Phillies about pretty much all season is how inconsistent their bullpen is, and them as a team not being able to manufacture runs without home runs. But this postseason, they've been able to put runs up on the board, man, and the bullpen has been able to be trusted with the lead. So when you got that going, and your superstar is playing like he's one of the best in the world, like how we know he is, you're a tough team to beat. And so as great as the Astros have been, you guys absolutely have a shot. I'm excited. I'm excited for it. Just moving on over to the other side, though, with the ALCS, as good as the Astros are, I did not see a sweep happening of over the Yankees. We saw how the series went between the Yankees and the Guardians. It was a super tight series, but I didn't see a sweep happening at all. So disappointed that didn't last longer. But if that gets me Astros, Phillies, and these teams play how they've played so far throughout the postseason, we're in for a hell of a matchup, and I can't wait to see it.
I'll take it a step further on that Astros Yankees series. The Yankees lineup fell apart, and they did. So it's funny because earlier in the season, if you remember, I compared the Phillies, the way they were built structurally, to the way the Yankees were built. Now, I was 100% dead wrong. I said, in April, it looked exactly the same. In September, it looked very similar when the Phillies weren't playing their best ball, that this team struggles to score runs when they're not hitting the long ball. Well, for New York, the big difference between New York and Philadelphia was Philadelphia, everything they did, it was like totally different than what you watched all year. They punched, kicked, scratched, clawed runs across. You've seen guys coming up in big moments, just putting the barrel on the bat, on the ball. Gene Segura, Bryson Stott. Yes, your big name players fixed it out, like did what they needed to do, hitting the long ball. Rhys Hoskins, after being 1 for 19, hitting 2 home runs. Kyle Schwarber started 1 for 20, hit Schwarberfest. You got a couple home runs from those guys. At the end of the day, man, I was super happy with how the Phillies produced. And you mentioned the bullpen, Cottrell. I've disagreed with so many moves Rob Thompson has made, and I've been dead wrong every time. I'm like, man, not dead wrong. I really wouldn't have brought in Robertson in the 9th inning and end up going to Ranger Suarez and end up working out. But my point being is, every time I second guessed him, it's worked out for the Phillies. So who am I to second guess this man? Philly Rob can do no wrong at this point. The Yankees have a lot of they want the whole organization cleared out. They want the GM gone. They want the manager gone. Aaron Judge is as good as gone, in my opinion. San Francisco went out and said, we will not be outbid for Aaron Judge.
Yep.
They were bold. We will not be outbid for Aaron Judge. Judge is asking for 10 years, 500.
Not going to get it.
I get it. No one ever gets the crazy ask, but what's your prediction on the series? Cottrell, I'll start with you because I'm hoping that you've joined the fightings for this, but I don't know if I'm going to get honesty at least.
Yeah. So, I will say the 2 times that I picked against the Phillies so far this postseason, they've won. So I'm gonna do it again. I'm hoping I give you the reverse jinx, but that Astros team, I mean, they haven't lost a game so far. They look as impressive as they can be. Seattle gave them a great shot. I thought Seattle was going to beat them. They beat up on Verlander, and then next thing I know, Jordan is walking it off. The Yankees again beating up on Verlander. I think the Yankees are going to get a game. Astros find a way to win. Even when their pitching isn't there, their hitting is going to be there. While I think you guys match up well with them. I think they're going to be a little bit too much. I'm going Astros in 6, and it's going to be more of the same. We see the Astros back on top, and who knows, 2 years from now, we'll probably be talking about some scandal and them stealing steins and beating on trash cans and finding ways to stop this Phillies team from their destiny. But I got the Astros in 6.
Shally.
So it's going to come down to little things, and I've been talking about it all playoffs long. It's the guy on second with 1 out. Who gets that guy home and scores more? I think both teams will probably hit their fair share of home runs. It's the little things that are gonna separate, because I honestly think these teams are that close. I think the Phillies definitely split in Houston. I do. I think either Nola beats Verlander. I think Wheeler beats Framber. I would love Nola to go win game 1 and really take the pressure off Wheeler just to go out and throw. I really would. I think there's an equal amount of shot of us coming back up 2-0 as us coming back down 2. I really do. I think you could break it down however you want. I think those first 2 matchups are critical. I think you're going to see both those starters again in game 5s and game 6 respectively. It's my brain and my heart want to do 2 different things here, and that's the difficult part with this. I think it's hard to sit here and predict that the Phillies are going to continue to come up with the exact hit they need in every single spot like they have so far. But I would have told you it would be crazy for them to do it for 3 rounds, and they did. That being said, we put all the gaudy Astro stats about 6 years in a row and 4 out of 6 and this and that. I mean, half those years they were cheating, so I don't lend a ton of credence to that as well. It's just a gut feeling, and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to overrule the old heart and overrule the old head. I'm going Phillies in 6, and that's what my gut tells me. I think we come back no worse 1-1. I think we probably split the first 2 here, and I really think Nola goes out in game 5 and has, for lack of a better term, the performance of his life. I think they go back up 3-2, and then all the pressure in the world is on Framber, and I'll lay my money on Wheeler at that point.
So it's funny you said that, because I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Dusty Baker's never won a World Series. That Astros team has done it without the cheating scandals. They've got all the way back there. Listen, we can't talk about cheating anymore. They've done it without anything at this point.
We can still talk about the cheating.
That's fair,
Great.
But they're a great team. Everybody on that team is a great team. Now, Cottrell picked the Astros in 6. Shally's got the Astros in 6, right?
Yep.
Shally's got the Phillies in 6. And with everything that the Astros have, I think they're a deeper ball club. I think that as a whole, they have guys that can get on base. They have young talent. They have a better bullpen. I think their rotation is just as good, if not better. I think it's deeper. I think McCullers. I think you got a lot in Houston that's there. But I don't care. This is a team of destiny, man. This is a team that I've watched in the Philadelphia Phillies that is a team of destiny. Every time they need a hit, every time they need a rally, when it was 2-0 versus the Cardinals, and they were in the top of the 9th inning in game 1, and they scored 6 runs. I don't care. This team finds a way to win. They pick each other up. The Schwarbers, the Harpers, the JTs, the Reese Hoskins, Nick Castellanos, Bryson Stott, Gene Segura. I just read the damn lineup out. I got the Phillies in 6 too. And here's how I see it happening. I see the Phillies taking game 1 from Verlander, losing game 2. I think Ranger, Suarez, and the Phillies win game 3. I think they lose game 4. I think in game 5, Noel comes back and pitches the game of his life. And I agree with Shally 100%. And in game 6, Zach Wheeler comes out there with all the pressure on Houston and throws a 1-0 shutout to win the World Series with Sir Anthony Dominguez throwing the last out, the best reliever the Phillies have. Phillies win in 6. I think the last I think it's a Jose Altuve strikeout by Sir Anthony Dominguez. I really believe it.
Poetic.
Yeah. Well, listen.
He won't be sitting on a high slider like he knows it's coming. I promise you that.
I just listen. As storybook as it sounds, I think the Phillies win the series, man. I think Bryce has a great series. I think Schwarberfest continues. I think Castellanos is starting to get on a groove. Man, I think the Eagles. I know it's the Eagles. I think the Phillies lose game 2, though. I will say that. I think Framber is going. Phillies hit fastballs, breaking balls, not so much. Phillies hit fastballs. Framber is the best lefty breaking ball pitcher in the league, so he's an ace. I think he might be. I think the torch is being handed from Verlander to Framber going into next year. But with that being said, Phillies in 6. Let's go Phils, man. Let's go Fightins. Let's move on. We got NFL. NFL talk. Now, last week we did this, and I loved it. The conversation flowed a lot better. Well, before we get into the pick'em, we'll get into pick'em, obviously. There's nothing really here as far as I don't want to break down a bunch of games, right? Like, I don't want to break down every single game. What I want to do is I want to talk about the big stories that are happening and kind of get your thoughts on them. The first one I will start with, though, is the trade of James Robinson. Listen, the guy behind, I loved this video. I loved it. I liked it on YouTube. Go follow ECG. It's hilarious. But James Robinson trades to the New York Jets. Breece Hall goes down with an ACL injury. They basically got him for a 6 and a 7. What were your thoughts on that? My first inkling, and I'll give my first thoughts on this one, and then I'll pass it to you guys, is what does James Robinson have to do to get some value and respect from the Jaguars organization? And I don't know if he's like this bad guy that I don't know about, but like he just overlooked. And in a situation where you drafted Travis Etienne in the first round, I understand Etienne's looked better each week and looked more comfortable, but why not a Thunder and Lightning role? Why not a 2-back split? Like, I don't understand it. The Jaguars it's not like they're picking up like superior talent in the draft by getting like a 3rd rounder. I could see that. If my future's Etienne, we're 2-5, like whatever. But what are your thoughts on the trade? Cottrell, I'll start with you.
I feel like, the Jags, I don't want to say panicked, but borderline panicked. I do think they could have got more value for him. I mean, I know he's coming back off the Achilles injury from last year, but you've seen the production so far this year. Like, it's not like he's been warming up or anything like that. Like, you're able to give him 20 plus carries a game, and he can handle that workload right now. So I was surprised to see the Jaguars let him go for so little. But for me, this kind of solidified that the Jets they're trying to be for real this year, and as crazy as it sounds, because I feel like they really came out of nowhere. This Jets team, they keep finding ways to win. I know they got a little bit of an easier game last week because Russell Wilson didn't play against that Broncos team, but I think them going out and trading for Robinson just shows that they're locked into this season. And even if James Robinson isn't a part of their long-term plans, he's going to be able to help them win ball games now and help them ultimately make it to the playoffs. And I don't think they're done. I think this move shows that they're going to be somewhat aggressive, or at least on the phone lines before the deadline happens, to see how else they can improve this roster to try and win.
Robert Saleh said he's taking receipts, man. He's taking receipts after game 1 when the Ravens beat him. They've been 5-1 since. Shally, what are your thoughts on the James Robinson move and the Breece Hall injury?
I mean, first off, Breece Hall, I mean, that sucks. I mean, I think you saw the last couple of weeks, especially when he really started getting the lion's share of the carries in New York, what he's capable of. He had the long touchdown run last week before he got hurt. And, we've talked about him numerous times, last year when he was a senior at Iowa State. We all praised him. We all thought he was going to make a very easy transition to the pro game, and he has. He's everything, everybody thought he was going to be. So anytime you see a rookie like that get hurt, it's devastating. It sucks. That being said, I agree with both you guys. I think they got to steal. I think James Robinson is a proven guy. He can be a workhorse if he needed to be. He can be a 20, 25 carry, a week guy. And he's productive. I mean, when he's been given the chance on some really bad Jacksonville teams, he's been productive. And I think he's going to fit the mold in New York. I think he's going to go up there, kind of like you said. I think he's a Robert Saleh type guy. I think he's got something to prove now. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's going to go up there and with split carries with Carter and see where it goes from there. But I think it's a great trade for the Jets. I mean, I don't really know what Jacksonville's doing. I do agree with you. I think ETN has looked better and better each week. I mean, you can really see that he's really got his legs underneath him now, and he's running more confident. He looks very explosive. He looked great last week. Anytime he got the ball in his hands, but
just made a super rookie mistake, fumbling the ball at the 2-yard line, bro.
Yep.
I watched that game and he made a great run and didn't secure the ball and he got smacked out and that was a huge play in that game. They go up big there, man. I think that is the determining factor of them losing the football game.
I think they look at it, kind of like you said, maybe he wasn't part of the future plans and to avoid any kind of more, I don't think there's issues. We never heard anything like that, but they just felt like this was their chance to move on from him. And they're going to continue to move forward and build around Trevor and ETN. But, I think the Jets got to steal. I think you're going to see him. I think you're going to see him be very productive up there. I mean, the Jets love to run the ball. There's going to be plenty of carries. It's to Cottrell's point. I think it's another example and another move, and proving that the Jets think they're legit. The Jets think that they're going to make a run at the playoffs, and they're in it to win it this year. You know what I mean? I don't think this is a move where we're all right, this will really benefit us next year. I think the Jets are going all in, and it's good for them. When both teams in that city are severely outperforming, I think, expectations of both this year.
Coaching, it's coaching.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
two very good coaches, Dable and Saleh.
We were big on Saleh 2 years ago when he got the gig. I think we all thought this was coming just because the type of guy he is. He was going to get a locker room once he got his locker room bought in. And they already had a good defense. He's a defensive guy. And, if they have good running backs. I think Zach Wilson's played a lot better since he's come back. They got to get them people on the outside. I think if they can, with the way that defense plays, I certainly wouldn't have to want to go there. You know what I mean? If I needed a must-win game at the end of the year, it's certainly not a place I'd want to go right now with the way they're playing and be we need to win this game to get in. And the Giants are playing the same way. I think Brian Dable, that if there's one new hire this year that, has proven to have been spot on the money and a guy capable of handling the duties of a head coach in the NFL, it's been him. I mean, the Giants,
especially in New York, man.
Yeah,
he's very, very handling the head coaching duties in New York is huge, and being able to handle that media outlet. I got a couple hot stove questions for you guys, and I just kind of wanted to see where your heads were at on these. First one is, how many coaches should be on the hot seat or fired this season?
Right now or the end of the season?
From now until the end of the season.
Jesus.
I have 5.
Well, Hackett is one.
I would say sure. Hackett's the obvious one.
Well, that's what sprung the question, Nathaniel Hackett question. They're saying if he loses to Jacksonville this week, he's fired.
So Hackett, there's always, who the hell knows what happens with Dallas, but
Frank Reich should be
Frank Reich is squarely on it, man.
So Frank Reich.
I'm not getting into it.
Let's go one at a time. Cottrell, you got a few more or no?
I'm literally going through the divisions in my head now.
How do you guys not say Brandon Staley? Do you want to talk about the most underproducing?
I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with Brandon Staley.
He's got a million injuries on his roster right now.
He just, bro. Keenan Allen's played one game. They just lost Jackson for the season after he played one game.
Bosa's been out.
Yeah, Bosa's out. What's the lineman's name? He's out.
Rashawn Slater.
Yeah. It's that team is decimated, bro. I agree with you. I think overall, maybe they've underperformed a little bit with the people they have on that roster. but he's probably going to get a pass for this year. I mean, he's losing. I mean, and it's not like you're like losing like backup linemen. Like his stars have been hurt. I mean, Herbert was hurt. Herbert played through it. I mean, like everybody on that team has, like every big name on that team has been hurt.
Brandon Staley should have been fired last year for the collapse they had and the way they played that last minute versus the Raiders. Should have been fired. They gave him another Super Bowl contender, Super Bowl or bust. I get it, all the injuries. This is the perfect opportunity to get Justin. This is what I've been saying to you guys forever, and I'll say it again. Young quarterbacks save coaches' jobs way too often when they shouldn't. Justin Herbert should be competing for the AFC West, progressing. Justin Herbert's looked worse this year than I've ever seen him. I understand Rashawn Slater's out. I understand that Keenan Allen's been out. I know that the injuries affect that. But what does Justin Herbert have? 7, 8 turnovers already? 6 games into the season? I don't think he had 8 turnovers in 14 games into last year. It's very, so to me, and I'll start and you guys can tell me yes or no, but Cliff Kingsbury needs to be on the hot seat. You knew that was coming. DeAndre Hopkins might save his job, and shout out to Paul Gravett for saying that, because it seems like Kyler Murray just throws the ball directly to him, which is great. But Cliff Kingsbury needs to be on the hot seat. Brandon Staley, Nathaniel Hackett, Frank Wright. Listen, Frank Wright, I think him getting on a hot seat will be the greatest thing for his career going forward. He should go back and be an OC somewhere. I'll take him back here. I know Shane Steichen's doing a great job. Shane Steichen might get a head coaching job next year. I'll take Frank Wright right back into our system and then get him another head coaching job for a better owner than Jim Irsay. Let's win now, win now, win now. Let's keep getting these one-year quarterbacks and bring them in, and Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz. And listen, he got screwed. Andrew Luck retired. He had a season with Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan. He hasn't had more than 1 year with a quarterback to develop in his system. That's a joke. So good. Let him be fired.
That's coming strictly from Irsay, though, and that's the problem. I mean, I think you saw today in the press conference when they were talking about Matt Ryan. You look at Frank Reich.
Rat Ryan, I like it.
You look at Frank, and you look at the GM's. His name escapes me right now, but you could tell they're
Chris Ballard.
Chris Ballard, who's a great GM. You could tell kind of through their body language, and I thought this happened last year with Carson a little bit too. Jim Irsay was calling that shot from the head, and that's what he wanted. And now if you're the owner, dude, and you're not going to let your GM, and you're not going to let your coach, some of this has got to fall at his feet. And I think a lot of this has to fall at his feet. And the team's just underperforming. I agree with Gene. I would take Frank Reich back here in a heartbeat. And obviously with the Staley connection or Sirianni connection, that's probably a no-brainer. But I think he's on there. I've seen a couple in the comments that I think are interesting. And one of them I wanted to say, before we started talking about Frank Reich, I think the LaFleur one's very interesting. I really do. Aaron
Rodgers is going to get another coach fired?
It's starting to look that way.
I'm just kidding. But, at the end of the day,
it's everybody's fault but Aaron's.
That's the problem with Aaron Rodgers right now. It's everyone's fault but Brent. But listen, to me, Cottrell, your thoughts? Cottrell, give me a yes or no and a reason behind Brandon Staley, Nathaniel Hackett, Cliff Kingsbury. They're the big 3 on my list. Frank Wright's on there because I think that Indy severely screwed up everything. But your thoughts on those 3 or 4?
I actually somewhat disagree on the way you guys feel about Frank Reich. I do think that his GM and his owner put him in a bad spot, but at the same time, you still have to coach. I get it. You've had these different quarterbacks come in, but the reason why they want this win now mindset is just because they have the roster for a win now team. And so you bring another quarterback. Hey, it doesn't work out. Cool. All right, we're going to get you somebody else. And I don't want to say that Frank Reich has handpicked these guys, but Carson Wentz, yeah, you talk about him just being in his system for the 1 year, but there's a lot of familiarity there. And you know, if that didn't work out, I feel like that was enough for Irsay to be like, hey, maybe the writing is on the wall here. This guy has known your system. I know he only been in Indy for a year, but he knows your system, and you couldn't get it to work out here. And so now we're gonna go get somebody else. And right now, Matt Ryan's not working out. And I mean, I do think that's a short end of the stick with Matt Ryan, but I think the way that the Colts have looked this year, I think he deservedly needs to be on the hot seat.
I think it's a culmination of kind of the last 3 years. You look 3 years ago, I think they were the trendy team that everybody said was knocking on the door of the Super Bowl. Last year, you know, they had moments where they looked great. They got through injuries. They had moments where they looked bad. Obviously, you know, we all saw the collapse, you know, in Jacksonville the last week of the year with Carson throwing that pick. And then you look at this year. I mean, Matt Ryan's come in, who was supposed to be the answer. He's turned the ball over 19 times already. And you have,
That
you
can't
know,
be right. He hasn't turned the ball 19 times.
he has 9. I don't know if all the fumbles were recovered, but he has 9 interceptions. He has 9 interceptions and 9 interceptions and 11 fumbles. You know, it's again, and I said this last year. They had other issues, and you saw it. You saw it through the course of the year. You look at their defense this year. Obviously, they were missing Leonard the first couple of weeks. I get that, so the stats are a little bit skewed. We're only 7 weeks in. They're giving up an average 9 points more a game this year than they were last year, and it's pretty much the same defense. You know, it's that team. You know, they lost 2 starting offensive linemen to free agency. Jonathan Taylor has not looked good. You know, he's banged up for 2 weeks, but before that, he was not playing well. I think that team has other holes they need to address. And like I said, I think Chris Ballard's a very good GM. I do. I mean, you know, you look at the pieces that are there and why they were praised so much. You got to let him run the team, man. You got to let him run the team. You got to let Frank Reich coach. And I think Jim Irsay is being one of those guys now that, you know, he's getting on that like Jerry Jones track where he wants to be like the big guy and be on TV all the time and have his name in the paper and thinks he knows best for everything. He's interfering with his team right now. And I think, again, I think Frank Reich, to Cottrell's point, I think does need to, you know, put some part of the blame in his feet just because, you know, at the end of the day, the coach is always going to be the first one fired. But after that, you know, I think Jim Irsay's got to take a step back. You hire these people, you pay them, let them make decisions. And if you're not going to, then, you know, you got to step up front too and be like, you know what, I told them to do this and I was wrong.
Bro, it reminds me so much of do you remember when Frank Reich took that job and how he got the job?
Hmm?
Do you remember that they hired someone prior?
Yeah.
They hired Josh McDaniel.
And
then he pulled out. And everyone's like, oh, is he going to get the Belichick's just going to retire? And I don't think that's what it was. I think that like he's seen how much Jim Irsay was meddling and was like, yeah, I'm going to pass on that situation.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with that. And it reminds me so much of that. What about Kingsbury, man? You guys on board with me and Kingsbury being a terrible coach?
I don't think he's a terrible coach, but come on. I don't think he's a great coach. I don't think he's terrible. Again, I think we've all agreed that you know, he has his shortcomings. I don't think he's terrible though. I think the more you're seeing it play out as well, I don't think it's 50-50 split, but it's no worse than like 60-40 between him and Kyler. The thing that complicates it for me for Cliff, I would say if he didn't get that extension, I think he'd be squarely on it. Them just re-upping him and being on the hook for money. I don't see him getting
the same thing. I agree with you.
I don't see him getting canned now unless, I mean, we're talking like they don't win a game the rest of the year type crap. I think if that happens, he gets canned. But if they finish 7-10, something like that, he's not going to get fired.
So I was going to say my opinion on it is we see Cliff's blunders. We see them, how they happen and things like that. But I think the other part of it too is you just talked about an owner meddling and all this stuff. When you have a quarterback that's not watching film and you have to put in stipulations for him to watch film, I mean, how successful are you going to be? And is part of that on coaching? Yeah, you're supposed to be getting the best out of your players and you know, you want to have them do what they're supposed to do. But I mean, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do behind closed doors and the organization is still shelling out $200+ million for him to stay, then there's only so much you can do with that too. So while I do think Cliff's seat should be hot because he has had some deficiencies coaching, I can't put all the blame on him when his quarterback is clearly not playing to the caliber that his contract says he's up to right now. I mean, you can
Looked
see
really
it just
good
in this
last
play
week
on
versus New Orleans.
Of course he did, because Marshawn was out and secondary was depleted, and Andy Dalton was just giving them the ball in their own territory. So of course you look better in that circumstance. And I wouldn't say he looked really good either. Benjamin looked really good. Their defense looked good, and Kyler did what he had to do. It wasn't like Kyler had this breakout game or anything like that. That was very much a team effort.
I don't disagree. It was a team effort. But with D Hop is a different quarterback. Paul said that perfectly. I got another question for you guys. We got to move forward. So we only have like two more things I kind of want your opinions on, and then we'll do our pick 'em. CMC, that's a huge trade, man. Last Thursday night gets traded to the San Francisco 49ers. Where do you rank San Francisco in your NFC teams, in your NFC power rankings with the addition of CMC? And then the last question I'm going to get into will be right after. Just quick, where do you have CMC and the 49ers in the NFC?
I'd probably
fourth or fifth, probably. And that's because of one person. If Trey Lance is on this team, I think they're probably two for me. With Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he's going to do certain things that are going to help them win games. I think he's probably going to lose them a game here or there. But he limits the ceiling of that team. You can call him a safe quarterback. You can call him whatever you want. He's going to limit certain things they can do. Just having CMC behind him now help them be more explosive. Absolutely. They got to get a little bit healthy. But again, I mean, if push comes to shove, if he needs to go 80 yards and score a touchdown, I don't have a ton of confidence with the game on the line. He's going to do that.
I think CMC really helps him because Jimmy Garoppolo is a check down quarterback, and you have a running back like CMC that you can check the ball down to constantly. It's a tremendous help. I would be really interested to hear. You said 4 or 5.
Me too.
The three teams that you have above them outside Philadelphia. But Cottrell, where do you have them to see if maybe I'm off base?
I have them at 2. I had them at 2 before CMC got there, though. The way that defense has been playing so far, there hasn't been really, outside of the Eagles, there hasn't really been anyone else in the NFC that's really stood out to me as being that, second best or third best team. You have teams that are playing well right now. The Vikings are playing well. The Giants are playing well. But I didn't have any of them as my bona fide number 2. The way that Niners defense is playing, them adding a talent like Christian McCaffrey, I think solidifies them for me as the second best team in the NFC.
I have, and I'll just be clear here. I predicted the 49ers to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, but that was with Trey Lance. I've since changed that prediction to the Philadelphia Eagles when Trey Lance got injured. I'm going to take that a step further. I don't think they're the best team in their division anymore, and I have them ranked 3rd or 4th. And that's why I was interested to hear where Shally is. I have them kind of tied for 3. I think their team is almost identical to another team in the NFC, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the team I have 2 will surprise you. Let me admit I'm wrong, right? One thing I was doing in the beginning of the season was trashing Matt Stafford and the St. Louis Rams. I think the last game that they played, Matt Stafford found his connection with Allen Robinson, the connection that he needed to. They looked a lot better. The chemistry looked there. So if I was power ranking the NFC playoff teams based off what I think they'll do, I'd go Eagles, Rams, with the Cowboys and the 49ers kind of tied 3-4 before I get into Giants, Vikings, and anybody else in the who's who. But yeah, I think that I think after their bye, the Los Angeles Rams are going to go on a tear. They just had their bye. I think right after this bye, I think they go on a tear starting this week. I think that the chemistry, the camaraderie got built. It looked like Stafford was finding Allen Robinson a lot more. It looked like Allen Robinson looked way more comfortable. And I think that is the key, is to be able to have a second wide receiver so all the pressure isn't on Cooper Kupp. I don't know if Van Jefferson will be back, but they could bring in Odell Beckham Jr. still. I think that's still a possibility. And I think the Rams are now the second best team in the NFC, regardless of the CMC thing.
I will say this too. I was very surprised to see the 49ers be the destination for CMC. Obviously, great player. He's one of those guys that isn't system dependent, but I didn't think that would be a good fit. You talked about the checkdowns for Jimmy G, and I think that portion of it is good, but the guys that Shanahan likes to trot out there, I was very surprised to see them go after CMC. He's never had that premier back, and it's always been this running back by committee thing. So them going out, giving up as much as they did to get CMC definitely surprised me. But I mean, I think when you add a playmaker like that, it's going to make your team better. So I applaud them for making the effort still.
Last thing, and I only got 30-second response for each one of you guys. Does Russell Wilson get it together this week versus Jacksonville and get it together going forward for the Denver Broncos?
I think it's be interesting to see. I mean, apparently he was doing high steps on the plane for 4 hours when he was sleeping. I don't know what the hell he's doing. He says he feels better. There's a lot of trade speculation with Jerry Jeudy. You have all the nonsense with Nathaniel Hackett. I hope so. I mean, I don't want to dislike Russ, or I don't dislike Russ, but he hasn't looked right. I don't know if that's butting heads with Hackett and the offensive game plan or what it is, but they just have way too many weapons for that offense to be struggling like it is. It just I don't know. So I'll say he looks a little bit better this week, but I won't be surprised if Jacksonville wins that game.
Control?
My answer is no, he doesn't look better this week. And yes, he looks better to end the season because I do think Denver gives Hackett the boot. They get some interim play calling, and I think a lot of it is Russell and company aren't comfortable running Hackett's system. And I think them getting a fresh head in there, I think that'll bring the chemistry there a little bit more. So I don't think it happens this week, but I do think it happens sometime soon.
I think Russ lost the locker room, and I think you'll see a trade coming in the next couple weeks of Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry Jeudy's going to get moved. I really believe that.
I hope so.
Trade deadline's next week, so.
Yep. So next couple weeks, this week, next week. I think Jerry Jeudy gets moved. I think Russ will eventually get it together. I think Hackett gets fired, and so I think he's gone. I think Hackett's gone. I think Russ will eventually get it together, but I think that they need to clear out that locker room, and I think the locker room's already completely out. You can tell by body language on Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy, and it might be just a coach, but KJ Hamler really looks like they're giving up on him. All right, let's get an NFL pick'em. Shally, start us off, brother.
Finally had a winning week. So I'm going to start with tomorrow night's game. I hate picking Thursday night games because of how unpredictable they are, and just the level of play is always all over the place. I actually changed my thoughts on this. I'm going a different way than I originally was going to. I'm going to take Baltimore -1.5 at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has so many people out hurt at this point that are most likely not going to play. They're down to practice squad players on half the offensive line. I think Baltimore is going to be able to get after Tom Brady. I don't think the offense is going to look much better than it did last week. It's a little dicey picking against Tom at home, especially when his back's up against the wall. But that team doesn't look real good right now. They don't look real good. They don't look like they have any desire to play right now. There's no urgency. Baltimore needs a win, away win to keep their streak going. So I will go Baltimore -1.5 away at Tampa Bay. I'm taking the Jets +1.5 at home against New England. I think they have a full-blown quarterback controversy now. Chicago went into Gillette and beat the balls off them on Monday night. I think the team's a little bit lost. I just don't think they have an identity on offense whatsoever. They're already talking about, the the camera wire gate thing going on with Mac Jones' interception, whatever. I think the Jets are just a better football team right now, honest to God. So getting a point and a half at home, I'll take the Jets. Last game I'm going to pick, Indianapolis Colts -3 at home against Washington. I think this is pretty much do or die, must-win game for the Colts. They're going to start Sam Ellinger. Washington is going with Heineke again, and with Carson Wentz being hurt. I think it's a lower scoring game. I think it's probably going to be more along the lines of a boring game to watch. I'll take Indy's defense over Washington's right now, though. I think they frustrate Heineke. I think they get enough points. Hopefully they get Jonathan Taylor back on track. Washington's not great against the run. I'll take Indy -3 at home.
Okay, control.
All right, so my first game, Shally, I'm directly against you. I like the Bucks +1.5 at home. It being that Thursday night game, the Bucks are coming off of an embarrassing loss to the Carolina Panthers with their third, fourth string quarterback. I mean, however you want to categorize PJ. I think the Bucks, they have to get it back on track right now, and I think they do it against that Baltimore Ravens team. The next game I like, Bears at Cowboys under 42.5. Cowboys are 9.5-point favorites in that game. The under hits on spreads 9.5 or more 60% of the time, and I love it here. The Bears are running on this emotional high of going into Gillette, beating the brakes off of the Pats, and the Cowboys defense is legit. So I like the under 42.5 there. And then the last game I like, the Vikings -3.5 versus the Cardinals. Last week, I know the Cardinals did look a lot better, but like I said when we were breaking down Cliff Kingsbury, the Cardinals got gifted a few turnovers in that game. And I don't think that happens in this game against Kirk Cousins. And so I think the Cardinals are going to have to really put together some drives if they want to beat this Vikings team. And I think the Vikings, they win this game by a touchdown. So I like the Vikings 3.5. Those are my picks.
Okay, so I have a pick on the Thursday night game too, and it's not either side. Although I was very close to taking Tampa Bay. Everything that you just said, I believe Tom Brady at home as a home dog is like 11-1 in his career. I don't think he's had that many games. I seen the stat earlier, and I'm probably messing it up. That's okay. I like Tampa Bay in the game, but that's not my pick. My pick is the over 45.5, I believe. Over 45.5. I think that becomes a high-scoring game. I think that the Buccaneers come out with a couple scripted plays offensively. They get up. I think that Lamar Jackson answers, and they score. They go back and forth. I think that game ends up being like a 31-28 Bucs win, which will go way over the 45.5. So I'll take the over 45.5 in game one. Game two, I'll take the Falcons -4 over the Carolina Panthers. Falcons just got the doors kicked off them by Cincinnati, and they're coming home. They're playing a Carolina team that just basically had their emotional high, emotional Super Bowl versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, winning that game versus Tampa Bay with the third string quarterback and the interim head coach. I think this week Atlanta rolls them because they're the better football team, and they've been that all year. And I also have a pick in a Cowboys game. I hate doing this, but I'll take the Cowboys -9.5 over the Chicago Bears. Chicago played Monday night at New England and got a win. They have to now travel Sunday to go play at Dallas. That Dallas defense is very good. They're very fast. They will control Justin Fields. They're much better versus running quarterbacks than New England is. New England has a huge issue defensively versus quarterbacks that are mobile. I think Dallas wins this one. I don't think it's very close. So I'll take the over, the Falcons, and the Cowboys as my 3 picks. And that's our pick 'em, gentlemen.
I was picking Tampa until I saw the injury report. That was my original
it's
pick.
funny, and I get that. I don't think I've ever bet against Tom. Well, I did with Aaron Rodgers, but it's very infrequent where I bet against Tampa Bay and win, or Tom Brady and win. Very infrequently. I got it with the New England game last year. I got it with the Packers game versus them this year, but it's very infrequent that happens. So let's move on to NCAA. Cottrell's got a nice hot take segment. I'm just kidding. A nice hot stove segment. Cottrell, what kind of questions you got for us on NCAA?
I mean, they're kind of all over the place,
I love it.
We'll talk about individual players. We'll talk about a coach. Talk about the future, and we'll talk about right now.
All right, get us started, man. What we got? What we starting with? I have no idea what these questions are.
Oh man.
All right. So right now, Tennessee has the most ranked wins in the country as it sits right now. They got another ranked test this week against Kentucky. If Tennessee takes care of business how we think that they should, or think that they are they the best team in the country as it sits today? Not are they ranked number one, or should they be ranked number one, but are they the best team as it sits today?
No. I'll be quick. No, the answer is no, because Georgia and Ohio State are better. Nothing against Tennessee. Tennessee won a home game versus a reeling Alabama. Bryce Young played his ass off, but Tennessee, in my opinion, is the fourth best team in the country when you put everything together. Ranked third is fine. They could be ranked one based off their strength of schedule and what they've done. They should be ranked one, but they're not the best team in the country. Like, if they play the other teams at a neutral field, they're going to lose. Nothing against Tennessee. Love the Vols. Vol happy. I'm a big Vols fan, Hendon Hooker, but no, they're not the best team in the country.
I'm going to go with no, only because, Gene, this isn't even a shot at Ohio State. I just don't know what they are yet. I'll learn a little bit more this week. I think Georgia's the measuring stick. They're defending champions. They've looked a little vulnerable, or I don't say vulnerable, but they've played not great football certain times this year, and they've gotten away with wins. But I think that game November 5th is going to tell you all you need to know when they go to Georgia. You go in there and win that, I think it's, I think we're totally changing the conversation and tilting it on its head. But until right now, it's hard for me to put them in front of Georgia. And I mean, it would be hard, it would be a really, really in-depth discussion for me to put them ahead of Ohio State. But I mean, they're right there. I mean, in my opinion.
All right.
Control, what's your thought? And then before, give us what's your opinion?
I mean, I would say right now, based on what they've done, I would classify them as that, but I don't know if I would say like I would pick them to win the national championship if the season ended today. But if I had a rankings, though, I think they would be my number one team in the country based on what they've done so far and how
they'll do anything to get Georgia out of that spot. I understand. Joseph Jeffers said, if they only lose to Georgia, will they still make the college football playoff? I can answer for Cottrell and Shalley. They would need a lot of help. I don't think they should need a lot of help, but they would need a lot of help. I think they should. I think they should. If it's a close game.
It would depend on what happens in an SEC championship game. Yep. If Alabama wins, that's horrible for Tennessee. And you need a lot of help from the Pac-12 and the Big 12 at that point.
I don't think you need any help from the Pac-12. Everyone's lost now.
You get a one-loss conference champion against a one-loss.
I would be willing to bet my left nut that if Georgia plays a close game versus Tennessee and then steamrolls Alabama, it doesn't matter what any Pac-12 team does, Tennessee would make it over any Pac-12 one-loss Pac-12 team. A one-loss, and your only loss being at Georgia? No way. No way. With all those ranked wins? No
you just said,
way.
You just said it, though. So you're going to take a one-loss Oregon whose only loss is on the road to Georgia, and they're a conference champion, and they're not getting in? You're going to lose your left nut, but I'm going to start calling you John Kruk. I'm going to start calling you John Kruk because that's what you're going to be.
Bill, listen to me. I said if it's a 3-point game, the eye test matters.
It won't matter.
I said if it's a very close game versus Georgia, one possession game.
Bill. It won't matter. They're not going to hold a road game against Oregon the opening week of the year, who then went to the Pac-12 and has a couple ranked wins and a conference championship under the belt, and not put them in the Final Four. There is zero shot of that happening when their only loss is Georgia. Not going to happen. On the road, not going to happen.
Okay. Next question.
All right. So I would say right now, I think you can kind of tell by the betting odds. CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker are the two odds-on favorites right now. Outside of those two, if you can only invite one more person to the Heisman ceremony, who would it be right now?
I mean, for me, it's Bryce Young. I mean, I know he won it last year, but I mean, the dude has just been. He's the sole reason they only have one loss, to be honest. We all saw the play he made against Texas. Gene mentioned it a couple minutes ago. Played his ass off at Tennessee. I'm a big Blake guy. I know Caleb Williams' name might get tossed around there somewhere else as well. I'm just not inviting anybody over Bryce Young right now.
It's tough.
It's funny that you say it's tough, Gene, because gut reaction, you would think Bryce Young, like automatically.
Yeah.
Bryce has missed a game and a half. So there's other people numbers wise and things like that. I know how important he is to Bama, but you take into account that he's missed a game and a half. I mean, it makes it a close race.
In this race, does Max Dugan and the TCU Horned Frogs win out?
As they sit right now. So they're undefeated right now. So it's the Heisman ceremony. Okay.
I'll take Max as my third one then.
I like that. I was really between three people. Bryce Young being one of them. I think a quiet one is Bo Nix. But since that Georgia game, Bo Nix has been playing his ass off. He hasn't really turned the ball over. Rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns. I mean, all the touchdowns that he's accounted for definitely gives you something to think about. And then the other one would be Drake May from North Carolina. I know he's not going to get the love, but he's second in the country right now in passing touchdowns. And outside of their one blunder against Notre Dame, he's been playing great football this year. Ultimately, though, it would be Bryce Young, though, just because when he's on the field, it's magic. And
Bryce is the best quarterback in the country. Bryce is the best quarterback in the country.
He's not.
You still on that, like, CJ Stroud's better than Bryce Young?
It's not that CJ Stroud is better than him. I mean, I got people who I like more than Bryce.
Who do you think's better than him, though?
I think
yeah.
You guys aren't going to like my answers.
Oh boy. We know CJ's one of them. Who else?
Yeah, CJ is one of them. I think Caleb is better. Caleb Williams is better.
Oh.
And I think, well, I don't think Quinn is better yet, but I think Quinn will be better.
Okay. I disagree. I think that Bryce Young's the best quarterback in the nation. But next question.
Next one. So right now, 4 out of the 5 conferences have an undefeated team. Is there a path for an undefeated TCU team to be left out of the playoff?
I mean, there should be, but there's not.
Wow.
And see, like, listen, me and Shally will always argue and will always be in a situation to where, and listen, I understand conference championships matter, but this is where I'll disagree. If the goal is to invite the best 4 teams in the country, TCU is not one of the top 4 teams in the country. There should be a path, but there isn't, because the committee would never do that. The Big 12 would throw the biggest fit in the world. They had an undefeated team that didn't make the college football playoff. But if you're being honest with yourself, is TCU a top 4 team in the country? And the answer is no. The answer is no. Are they better than Michigan? No. Are they better than Ohio State? No. Are they better than Georgia? No. Are they better than Tennessee? No. Are they better than Bama? No. But you can consistently keep doing this because they play the Big 12, which is a lighter schedule.
The question is there a way that it does happen? Is that what you asked?
Correct.
Yeah. Is there a path for them to get left out?
So, I mean, you're figuring either Georgia or Tennessee are out. Well, yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, it probably is. But I don't know if there should be per se. But I mean, you got to figure.
What's that path look like? How?
It's a disaster. I mean, it's a freaking, you could probably qualify for disaster relief if you wanted to get there. But I mean, you can figure Clemson's going to run the table now. They're going to be in. I mean, we had this discussion and we already talked about that last week. I think we're assuming Listen, I would give you a better. I would argue with you, Gene. Agree on that. I would put TCU in before Clemson if they're both undefeated. But Clemson's going to get in. They have enough name recognition and all that crap that we all hate. If they go undefeated and win the ACC, they're going to get in. You're figuring either Ohio State or Michigan, whichever one of them comes out of that game undefeated and they win the Big Ten, they're going. I guess we're assuming in this projection, we're assuming Georgia or Tennessee run the table, correct? So whoever does that is in. I think you would need carnage in the SEC. I think you would need. It still wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. I think it's possible, and I think that's crazy. But I just think this is. And I said this to you at the field the other night, Gene. I think this is going to be the craziest year, and this is going to be you're going to hear the loudest voices ever about a year where they needed to have 8 spots for the playoff.
So Shally, real quick, and before I know Control's got her. So if there's an undefeated Georgia, an undefeated Ohio State, and an undefeated Clemson, they're your 3 teams. Who is the 4th team with a loss that would take TCU's spot?
I mean, your arguments would be obviously we're assuming Oregon wins the Pac-12 with 1 loss to Georgia.
And you can make any argument you want. Oregon can win 100-0 next 4 games, and they're not going to make it over TCU's undefeated.
Probably not. You asked me who the arguments would be. It would be Oregon. It would be Oregon, Michigan, and Tennessee. That would be your argument.
I think the argument for me would be which team. If there's 3 1-loss teams in the SEC, let's say Georgia or Tennessee, they run the table, then they lose to Bama. Bama goes, they win the SEC championship game. They're 1-loss SEC champ. But let's say it's a rematch against Tennessee, or if it's a matchup against Georgia and it's a walk-off field goal or something like that, where Tennessee or Georgia at that point is the number 1 team in the country, and they lose to Bama, who is probably sitting at 5 at that point, and they lose by 3. I think that would be the scenario where TCU could get screwed.
Listen, we've been talking about this till the cows come home. SEC is going to do everything they can and pull every trick they can to try to get 2 teams in. I think carnage.
What do you mean every trick they can?
Bro,
they play the games. They're the best teams.
I mean, yes, but
they're not the best teams now.
No,
every year they're the best teams.
No, we understand that, but giving rankings like 7 to Ole Miss, and making sure LSU is ranked 25, so that can be another ranked win on your opponent's schedule. Which is literally
what I brought that up on the show. LSU had no business that week being ranked over some of the teams that didn't get enough votes, and that's exactly what you have to do. It's shit like that. All of a sudden, Ole Miss went down there, or what's face when Tennessee went down there. Now it's like, is Tennessee a better football team? Yeah, I'm not arguing that, but
they wouldn't beat the brakes off of them.
Correct, and now it's another rankment for Tennessee. The SEC does shit like that. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. And I literally mentioned it on the show when we did the pick'em for it. Like, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. It's by the end of the year, when you add all that stuff up, it makes one team's repertoire look completely different than what it really is. Like, they're going to get it right.
Real quick, I'm going to make a quick counterpoint to what you're saying. Let me ask you a question. Is there anybody that would tell you, is there anyone that wants to argue with me that there's any conference that's even close to the SEC? Would you like to argue that again and get absolutely decimated again? We could do that. There's no conference that's close. That Michigan bullied Ohio State last year and got the shit beat out of them by Georgia.
That's a top team, though.
It's a different team. Every year it's a different team.
No, we're talking about the top. We're talking the top of the team we know. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about conference. There's more teams in the SEC than Georgia and Alabama. Florida hasn't done shit in a decade.
I guarantee you, everybody in the Big Ten.
Tennessee hasn't been good in a decade.
I can make a case that Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee are the best 3 teams in the country.
I mean,
I'm not saying they are, but I could easily make a case that the best 3 teams in the country all play in the SEC.
I mean, I can make a case that the 2 best teams in the country are Ohio State and Michigan.
And you're lying to yourself.
But you can make the case is what we're
I don't think you can make a case for Michigan. That you can't say that they're a top team in the country after they got boat raced the last time they played an SEC team.
They got boat
That
raced
was
by
last
the
year.
national champion, who we literally had this discussion the other day.
Who is still the national champion and is still
but
undefeated.
they had 7 dudes who were starting in the NFL that went in the first round. You're talking about a top 3 defense in college football history. Did we get our asses kicked? Yeah, but we got our asses kicked by one of the best 3 defenses anybody on this planet has ever seen. They didn't lose to fucking Vanderbilt, bro. They lost to Georgia, who's one of the best teams ever assembled, ever. That team was one of the best college football teams ever. They're not that good this year, and you'd be lying to yourself if you said they are, because they're not.
I think their offense is better.
And their last year's defense would kill this year's offense.
I think last year's defense was better than this year's defense, but I don't think this year's defense is bad, and I think this year's offense is better.
Not what I said. I didn't say bad. I said they're nowhere near as good. They're still
It's
good.
fair.
They're obviously the number 1 team in the country. Obviously,
Kent
they're good.
State would beg to differ.
All right, next question. We gotta keep moving.
All right, this is the last one. So we got some time here. It's kind of out there, but how hot is Jimbo Fisher's seat? So I say that with this in mind. They just lost to South Carolina, and they have not won a conference championship since he's been there. At what point they didn't bring them
at all.
At
It's
what
cold,
point
actually.
I hate to say,
it
won't be
3
this
years
year.
from now.
I'll say 2, and I'll tell you why.
It's the number 1 recruiting class in the country.
Correct. They're not going to fire him and risk losing that recruiting class coming in. So it's not going to happen. He has next year and the year after. If he doesn't,
Correct.
once
3
all
years.
those, okay, so you're counting this year. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So once he gets those recruits on campus and he has them for 2 years, if they are not challenging to win the SEC West, he's gone. They paid him a lot of money and brought him in to beat Nick Saban. And if he doesn't get it done in the next couple of years with all those kids coming in, he's never going to get it done.
Beat him last year. But yeah,
well, yeah, but I'm talking.
I
about,
understand. Make the playoff, win the SEC.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I guess my one kind of counterpoint to that, it's not like Texas A&M has had shitty recruiting classes before. I get it. They haven't had the number 1 recruiting class, but he's been there 5 years now and hasn't won the conference once. You pay him all that money. I mean, they let go of Sumlin for less. At this point in their careers, someone had more wins than what Jimbo does.
I'm not saying that it's right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that it's not hot.
It's not hot, and they weren't paying Kevin Sumlin $8 million a year either. And
Agreed.
trust me, dude, I'm by all means not a Jimbo Fisher guy. I think he's one of the most overrated coaches ever.
I don't think he's an overrated coach. I think that his offensive system is 7-8 years dated.
I think he caught fire one season when he had the best player in college football, or one of, and I think he won a national championship. And now I think people look at him differently. I don't think he's good. I think he's an above average coach.
Excellent recruiter. I think he's an excellent preparer. I think he's an excellent coach on the defensive side of the ball. I think his offensive scheme and game plan is about 7 or 8 years outdated, if I'm being honest. That's just my view on it.
So you just described your head coach at Penn State. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody would sit up here and say James Franklin's a good coach. So
James Franklin sucks. I did, didn't I?
You did.
Let's get into pick 'em. Let's get into pick 'em, boys. Control, you're still in the lead. What's the order?
Gene, you go first. Bill second, and I'll go last.
All right. For this week in college pick'em, I have Georgia minus 22.5 over Florida. Florida cannot stop the run at all. All Georgia wants to do is run the football. It's one of those games where Georgia gets up for, and they're the best team in the country. So give me Georgia minus 22.5 over Florida. I don't understand. You know, it's a little reverse line movement on the game too. 65% of money's on Florida. The line moved from 20.5 to 22.5. They're trying to get more people betting on Florida. Georgia's going to win this football game. They're going to win it by a lot. Second name. Listen, I love this game. I don't know why. I like Minnesota minus 13.5 over Rutgers. Muhammad Ibrahim is going to run all over Rutgers. The best running back no one talks about. Muhammad Ibrahim runs for 190 and 3 touchdowns, and the Gophers win this game over Rutgers. And then last but not least, it's a game. It's the game for all you degenerates. Hawaii stinks, right? But they get bet on a ton. Wyoming is going to go into Hawaii at midnight and kick the shit out of Hawaii. They're going to beat them. It's minus 10.5. They beat them by 28. Don't worry about it. You won't have to stay up to 4 a.m. because the game will be over at 2. Give me Wyoming minus 10.5. And for my super dog, I don't like them to win the game, but Bo Nix stinks on the road. I'll take Cal plus 17.5 at home on the letdown game for Oregon as my super dog.
All right. It's funny you mentioned that Oregon game because I had literally almost picked that as my super dog. Minnesota is the Golden Gophers. You could have called them that. And I agree with you.
I got it mixed up with Cal Golden Bears, and I just didn't want to screw it up. I'm like, Gophers.
And I think I agree with you. I think Ingram goes for 200 plus on Rutgers. I really do. It's funny you brought that up in your preview. My 3 picks of the week. I'm going to start with this one. We just talked about the coach, James Franklin. I think he stinks. I think Ohio State goes in there. I don't think this is a trap game. I don't think this is one of the games where Penn State pulls something out of their ass and they magically cover this game. I think Ohio State's going to go in there and boat race Penn State. I saw everything I need to see at Penn State when they played us. They're not going to be able to run the ball real well against Ohio State. As good as that secondary is with Joey Porter Jr. and all them, they're eventually going to give up some plays. With Njigba back and getting healthier by the week, I think Ohio State goes in and covers. I'll take Ohio State at minus 15.5. And I hate that I keep picking them on this goddamn segment. My second pick, I'm going with my boys that won for me last week. They showed some heart, and Mike Gundy rallied the troops. Oklahoma State plus 1.5 at Kansas State. I don't think Kansas State's that good. Again, it's another thing. They're ranked. They probably shouldn't be. Plus 1.5. Manhattan, Kansas could be a tough place to play. Don't get me wrong. Adrian Martinez is there on his 9th year of eligibility. But I just don't think that offense is going to be able to, or their defense, as good as it is, going to be able to completely slow down Oklahoma State. I'll take the plus 1.5. I think Oklahoma State wins the game outright. My last one, I'm going with Syracuse minus 3 at home versus Notre Dame. I think they get a big rebound win at home up in the Carrier Dome or whatever it's called now. Syracuse surprised me last week. They were a couple stupid mistakes away from going into Clemson and winning. And honestly, they probably should have. I think they were the better team for parts of that game. And I think they go home and Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's going to really struggle to move the ball against that defense. That defense is legit. And Syracuse, I think, will score enough points. I'll go Syracuse minus 3 at home. And my super dog, I hate this game, but we were just talking about Jimbo. I'm taking Georgia Tech plus 24.5 against Jimbo's old team, Florida State Seminoles. I think Florida State wins. I think they're the better football team. I think 24.5 is a lot. Georgia Tech's played a lot better the last couple since they fired their coach. I think they go in and I think they just hang around a little bit for a while. Probably lose the game by like 14 points, somewhere in there. I think it's comfortable for Florida State. I just don't think they win by 24.5. So I'm taking Georgia Tech plus 24.5.
If you're wondering why I didn't take Penn State told me everything I need to know about this game when they chose their whiteout game last week. Because it literally is everything I needed to know. Well, we don't want to lose on our whiteout game. Yep. Like they're walking into the game knowing they're going to lose the game. However, I don't think the game's going to be a blowout because I don't think CJ Stroud's good versus good defenses. Over and over again, he struggles versus good defenses. Happens constantly. So I think the game will be maybe a 17 or 20 point game, but I don't think it might be 24-7. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't think Ohio State has their way offensively with Penn State because I don't think CJ Stroud's good against good defenses.
Well, if they win by 17, I'll take it.
I get it. I'm not disagreeing with it. I just want to make my CJ Stroud slander apparent.
Hey, I get to see him up close this week.
Gene's full Georgia mode now, bro. He was not gonna watch the game.
Who's my pick this week? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Control.
All right, so this week I really like the 3.5 spread. Gene, I know this is kind of your favorite metric to go by, but the teams that were favored by 3.5, I mean, I think all of them are good football teams, and they're going up against very below average football teams. First game, Arkansas minus 3.5 at Auburn. I know Arkansas is traveling, but Auburn hasn't looked good at all. And KJ Jefferson makes a huge difference on this Arkansas team. When he's playing, they play well. When he's not playing, that's when they look disheveled. That's when they got blew out against Mississippi State. But he's back. He's going to have it rolling at Auburn. Not worried about that one. I think that's an easy win for Arkansas. The next one, I like Wake Forest -3.5 at Louisville. Sam Hartman has led that Demon Deacons team to where they're top 10 scoring offense in the country. Louisville's not going to be able to hang around with them. I think they dropped 40 in that game, and Louisville might get to 28. I think that's a double-digit win for Wake Forest. And then the last game is a guy who I mentioned for a sleeper Heisman guy, Drake May. UNC's -3.5 versus Pitt. And I think, again, the way that UNC's offense has looked, they really had it rolling all season. And besides the Notre Dame game, they've looked great. And that Pittsburgh team has been very underwhelming. We saw them lose to Georgia Tech team a few weeks back. Keaton Slovis isn't that guy. So I like UNC to roll at home. And then my super dog, I'm going against Eugene. I like Florida +22.5 against Georgia. This is a game where it's a neutral site, and Georgia has the matchup of the year against Tennessee next week. I think this could very much be one of those situations where Georgia is looking ahead at like, hey, our season isn't on the line today. It's on the line next week. If we lose next week, we can basically kiss our chances at going back to defend our crown goodbye, because Tennessee is going to go to the SEC championship game. So I think Florida, they stick around. Georgia ultimately wins, but I think they can keep the game within 22.5 points.
Yeah, Control, that's a really good point. This is definitely the definition of a look-ahead game. I was just wondering, you didn't have any confidence in Keaton Slovis? No?
No.
Look, I don't disagree with any of your picks, and the 3.5 is a good thing. You always want to bet the teams that are 3.5 because Vegas is trying to get you 3.5, 7.5, 10.5. Remember those rules. If the spread is 3.5, 7.5, 10.5, they're trying to get you to bet the team that's getting points. If it's 2.5, 6.5, or 9.5, which I fell for earlier with Dallas, they're trying to get you to team. They're trying to get you to take the team that's giving points. Yeah, that's just a rule that I've had in betting for years, and that it's worked well.
Next week, baby. First rankings come out Tuesday night. So next Wednesday, we get the first set of rankings to rip apart.
All right, so we're going to do a quick UFC recap. Then we're going to do our Mount Rushmores. And we're going to get done this show before 9 o'clock, which is great because I got to be out here anyway. But UFC recap.
Same.
I don't – so I want to give quick thoughts, but we'll start with the first fight, which I'll go on record and say this now. The undefeated Peter Yan, undefeated, never lost a fight in Gene's book because he got robbed again. And I don't know if the UFC has something against him. I don't know if judges have something against him. I think he's a little too clean with his shots. 5.5 minutes of control time in a 3-round fight where you outstruck the fighter in a round. It to me is clearly a Peter Yan win. Sean O'Malley didn't believe he won the fight. He was walking around like, yeah, it was pretty close. So I guess I see how they ruled it in my favor. But a takeaway from the fight would be that Sean O'Malley is the real deal. Young fighter, real deal, didn't get outclassed, didn't get destroyed, landed the most flush shot I've ever seen landed on Peter Yan, ever. Peter Yan looks stunned. I've never seen him stunned before. Never. I'll give Sugar Show his credit. He fought an excellent fight. He fought better than I expected him to fight and way better than I could ever imagine. But with that being said, this is now the third fight out of 4 that Peter Yan was either winning or should have won the fight and got credit with a loss. I don't know what the UFC is going to do, but the truth is it's embarrassing. Shally, I watched the fight with you. We watched the fight right next to each other. You had Peter Yan winning. There's a report where every single reporter covering the fight that listed their scores had Peter Yan winning. There wasn't one, not one that had Sean O'Malley. But 2 judges found a way to give it to Sugar Sean O'Malley. Let me guess, 29-28 Cottrell, because that's what it was for Peter Yan. 29-28 Bill, because that's what it was for Peter Yan. You're both are gonna sit up here and tell me that Peter Yan won the fight 29-28, and I know Cottrell's gonna defend the decision still. But Shally, your thoughts? We watched it right next to each other.
I think I agree. The two takeaways I would have is that Peter Yan definitely won the fight. I thought it was clear. I was shocked when they went to O'Malley. And to your point, when they were getting ready to, when Buffer was behind there reading the scores, and he looked like he fully expected Peter Yan to get his hand raised. He didn't look hopeful. He wasn't jumping around. He had a good look on his face. I think he lost the fight, and I think he knew he lost the fight. And the second takeaway, I'll say that though, I'll turn around and praise him, is that I think he took that next step up in competition, and he proves he belongs in that in that division. I think he's the real deal. He is very young. I think he's only going to get better. Hopefully this makes him even got the W, but hopefully this makes him even more hungry and go back and fix some things he needs to work on. But he's the real deal. I think he's a legit competitor. I'll be really curious to see who his next opponent is again, or if they're going to let him go, the ladder even further and face somebody else. But those are the two things, and it's overall, I thought it was a very good fight. I mean, you talked about the shot that he landed on Yan, and then, right after that, Yan smoked him. I mean, it was a good fight. It was everything it was, hyped up to be. So I was, it was exciting to watch. It's crazy that Yan got robbed, though. I think that's a real disservice to him. I think he did enough to win the fight. I think it's another fight just to chalk in, chuck into the bin of really, really bad decisions over the last, 2 years for the UFC. And they got to figure something out with the scoring system. They got to do something.
Cottrell?
So, like you said, Gene, I had it 29-28 for Peter Yan, and I was fully expecting Peter to get his hand raised at the end of the fight. But I didn't think the first round was as lopsided as everyone's kind of making it out to be. I know Peter had some takedowns and there was some control time there, but my whole feeling about the UFC and how points should be scored, just for when you're not doing anything, even though you had to take down, if you're not doing anything with it, you shouldn't get too much credit for it. And so while I thought Peter had the control to win the round, and I thought striking wise it was very much back and forth that round. I thought, Peter would have the advantage getting the takedowns and having the control. But as much as it surprised me, I don't think this is like the worst screw job of like all time or anything like that. Like although I didn't have it that way, I could see how it went the other way.
I can't. I didn't hear that last thing you said. Did you hear that, Bill?
Right. Then it comes through now.
So, I'll comment real quick. Yeah, you're like muted. I don't know if accidentally or not. But I listen. It's not about him being screwed. It's about him being screwed again. Like you had the Aljamain Sterling fight where Aljamain's like, yeah, I can't continue, and did an acting job, did a DQ victory to win the title, which I thought was bullshit. Then they fought again, and Aljamain clearly won 2 rounds. And by the way, I would have been fine with the draw in that fight if you gave Aljamain a 10-8 in one of the rounds. But to give Aljamain round 1 over Peter Yan was embarrassing. Embarrassing. Yan won 1-4-5 versus Aljamain in that fight, and he got screwed and a split decision loss. And now you will go into this fight, and it's the same thing. So he just seems like he's on the I want him to be on the bad end of a win, and then I can be like, okay, well, some come, some go. But that's not what happened. It's embarrassing. So, with that being said, let's take it a step further. Let's move on to the next fight. TJ Dillashaw, who really wasted a lot of viewers' money. We really wasted a lot of people's time. And I understand wanting to be a warrior and battle through the fact that your shoulder dislocated 20 times in training camp. But with that being said, come on, man. I mean, you had him versus Aljo would have been a great fight if TJ's 100% healthy. Knowing that his shoulder popped out of his socket 20 times in training camp, like, what did you think was going to happen? And then when it pops out in the first round, you put it back in and you're like trying to convince the judge that you're fine, even though everybody knew you weren't. I think that he cost himself his title shot, and I think he cost himself a title shot in the future. Dana White was severely mad about it afterwards, and the viewers were. You really got a dud of a fight here where Aljo, all credit to Aljo, he looked great, took him down, looked good, but you're fighting against a guy with one arm. It's really tough to win those fights. Shally, how'd you see it?
No, I agree. I mean, and I think it's different if he dislocates maybe his right shoulder and he could still throw his left. I mean, he literally couldn't throw his power hand. He's sitting there throwing awkward, right-handed jabs and uppercuts, and I said it earlier. I think it's crazy some of the circumstances that have surrounded Aljo's last couple of fights. I mean, just I've never seen anything like it, and I'm not saying it's his fault. I've just never seen a run where every time he gets in the cage, almost like it's some like extenuating circumstance. But to his credit and his defense, I think he looks better than he did 4 fights ago. I really don't know how he would have looked against a healthy TJ, but I thought he looked good. I thought he looked good Saturday. And I think he's looking better. Some of the comments and everything else I could do without. The ultra confidence and the acting like he's, killing people when he's really, that's not how he's winning fights. But that's another discussion for another day. But I do agree with you. Dana was pissed. That was a co-main event of the card. I mean, it was, and again, it's a championship fight, and it's a fight that a lot of people wanted to see. I mean, again, on paper, that's a very exciting fight. It's a very exciting fight. And we didn't get that. So when you go from Jan and O'Malley, which kind of left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth, but it was still a very good fight, and then you get that dud before you went to the main event, I think that's kind of what pissed Dana off. And it'll be curious to see, how far Dana makes him work his way back up to get another shot, how many fights it's going to take. But I agree with you, man. That fight never should have happened. If it's coming out that often, that frequently in training, you have to be a fool to think you're going to go into a 5-round fight and it's not going to come out. Like, come on, man. Like that's bad. That's at that point, and apparently it started far enough out that he could have stepped away from the fight, and they could have found a replacement for Aljo. They could have. It was far enough out in training camp that somebody else could have got ready. So that part of it pisses me off. And TJ doesn't have the best recent history right now with things going on. So I don't think he's got the best relationship with Dana White right now.
Correct. Agree with you 100%. Cottrell?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what both of you guys have said so far. I guess my biggest issue is that he's held up that division now for essentially 3 years. Obviously, he had the suspension for 2, and then he gets Sanhagen and then gets an immediate title shot. I would argue, if it's not 155, that's the best division in the UFC right now. You have so many top contenders from top to bottom. And these guys are chomping at the bit to get a shot, and you knew you weren't healthy, but you still went in there and tried to fight with one arm. It was selfish. And I think Dana severely punishes them. Like I said, this division is deep, and with as many guys as they have, O'Malley, Cheeto, Peter is going to eventually be back in the mix. I think TJ gets buried. He's going to have to go on a 3 or 4 fight win streak to be back in the mix.
What's next for you? Froze again. What's next for that division? Who's next for Aljamain Sterling?
I don't know.
You got no volume control, just FYI. I'm just trying to heads up.
I mean, it could be Vera. I don't know. That's weird. I mean, it's almost, I don't want to say this is the case, but I really feel like a lot of people thought TJ was going to come out of that fight with the belt. And now we're kind of in a spot where I don't know if there's necessarily like a dead set, clear next contender for him for Aljo.
Well, I think it's got to be Sugar Show.
Yeah, I mean,
Doesn't.
I don't know. I mean, I could see it. I mean, coming off Jan, he's got a lot of momentum. Obviously, the crowd loves him. They're on the same card, so they should be ready around the same time. I mean, Aljamain definitely didn't get hurt. I don't think I didn't look at the medical suspensions, but I don't know if Shane got sat down at all for any period of time. But I mean, it'll sell tickets. I mean, it'll sell for sure.
I think Aljo wins that fight easy, but just my opinion.
I mean, Cejudo, O'Malley, and Cheeto would be your top three guys that deserve the shot. If I'm Cheeto, I'm like, hey, I beat O'Malley already, and that's who I should be fighting next. I should be getting a shot at the belt. If you're O'Malley, you'd be like, hey, I just beat Peter, and he's been on top of this division. And then last one be Cejudo, retires as the double champ. So you would have to think that he'd be up there in the mix. Marab is definitely one that would be an interesting name to think about. But the problem with him is that I don't think there's any way possible that he'd fight Aljo. So, and plus he's not in Dana's best favor. He's never amused by him. So I think that's another name to think about, but I don't see that happening.
All right, let's get to the last fight of the night. Listen, I can't. Charles Oliveira versus Islam was an absolute, and Islam really showed out in this fight. Looked great. Beat him on the feet and then got on top of him, which a lot of people are just worried about. Islam on Charles on the bottom. I thought that Charles would have an opportunity for a submission attempt, but that's not what happened. Islam caught him, cold-cocked him. Charles retreated into guard like he does so often, and Islam submitted him. Are we looking at the next Khabib Nurmagomedov? Are we looking at the next great champion at 155? Because the way he ran through Charles Oliveira, like what's next for Islam? And, if you might maybe Dariush, I don't know. But what's next for Islam after that?
I think you already said his name. I think it has to be. I think it has to be Dariush. I think it's a similar fight to Oliveira, maybe. But I think Dariush is a little bit more confident on his feet than Oliveira is. But again, the same card. He came out unscathed, had a nice win. I think that logically makes sense. Kim and Khabib were supposed to fight, and that didn't happen. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's going to be the next fight. He looked great. I mean, and I think when you see a guy who is well versed and is great at jiu-jitsu as Charles Oliveira is, to see him tap out to a very basic arm triangle, if we're all being very, very honest, he was hurt when he went down into guard. He was hurt. For Islam to be able to fall on top of him and tap him out that easily, it showed you how hard he got hit. And I'll go one step further. We've had this debate, and I'm not trying to ignite it right now. I think when it's all said and done, I think Islam's better than Khabib. I think he's going to fight longer. And honest to God, I think if they fought, I think Islam would beat him. But I mean, we're never going to see that fight. But I think Islam has every chance in the world to absolutely be better than Khabib.
Control.
So, I mean, you know how high I am on Islam and how high I've been on him. I think we're looking at the next great champion. I think when you can look at his style, the sambo that he does, that the Dagestan fighters go towards, I think the biggest test against that is a guy like Charles with outstanding Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And if you could submit a guy like that and you're confident on your feet, you're going to be tough to beat. Not only do I think he's going to be better than Khabib, I think he's going to be better than 98% of the other guys. I think when it's all said and done, Anderson, John Jones, and then he's going to be up there in the GSP territory. He's young. He's he's got it going, man. I think he's special.
Y'all laugh. Y'all make me laugh, right? Like Khabib doesn't have as much of a resume as he's supposed to have, and that's why he doesn't get credit for where he's at. But you're talking about Islam, who's a guy that has like 12 pro fights. That is now on the Mount Rushmore.
I didn't say he
now
was
on the friggin' Mount Rushmore of UFC
that's not
fighters.
See, you just
he's gonna be Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre.
So projections mean nothing. Then you say that about Hamzat, and I guess it's crazy. I mean, we saw look at how he won that fight. How is someone going to be just how you say how is someone going to beat Hamzat? At 155? How do you beat a guy like Islam?
Oh, trust me, I think Islam's going to be great. I'm not saying he's not. I just want to see him beat 5 or 6 more fighters before it's crazy the disrespect Khabib gets on this show. I really wish I could show like Khabib and his entire camp what we say on this show.
It's not disrespect. Saying that Khabib is the sixth best fighter of UFC history. That's not disrespect.
No.
Or 5th.
Alrighty.
Just because it's not on Mount Rushmore doesn't mean it's disrespect.
Let's get to Mount Rushmore. Speaking of Mount Rushmores, thank you very much for the UFC recap. I just can't stand the Khabib disrespect.
I mean, at this point, Islam just got to defend his belt 3 times, and he's right there in his company, right?
Oh God, this is so embarrassing.
I'm just asking.
All right, so we got Atlanta versus Carolina. Hopefully, Paul Gravitt's still listening. I know he's got some Atlanta, but we got Atlanta versus Carolina. We've had this for a while, and we haven't been a chance to have it. We've been running over on shows. The shows have been jam-packed, but we got to get back to it. Mount Rushmore's are huge. A bunch of people are asking about them. So let's start it off. Which one we got first? Carolina. Bill, this is a list of coaches and greats. Go ahead, Bill. Let me know what you think.
Why? I feel like I feel like you want me to do Carolina because you know what I'm going to say about the last person. So it is what it is. All right. So I don't know. All right. I guess we'll start with Coach K. Actually, we're going to start with Dean Smith. Michael Jordan's coach. I mean, the dude's coached countless. I mean, all NBA people of all time. Put North Carolina on the map. Stop laughing. That's like everybody's like waiting for it now. Like it's not even like funny. And won a couple championships. North Carolina is synonymous with Dean Smith. I mean, it's the arena is literally called the Dean Dome. Great guy, huge college ambassador, coached Team USA for a while. Had the most wins for a long time until the other guy on this list caught him. Great coach, great human being, passed away a couple of years ago. But if you look at the guys he coached, I mean, it's some of the all-time greats. And again, I mean, he was the one that recruited, Michael Jordan and brought him there and got him to play. And, Michael Jordan gives him a ton of credit for, sometimes even more so, the human being that he turned out to be, versus the basketball player. Second guy on this list is Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski. I hate Duke, but I mean, the dude's a legend. Turned Duke into, kind of went from not really ever being really not super good at anything to one of the top 2 or 3 college basketball powerhouses of all time. I think he's got 3 or 4 championships, has the most wins, started at Army, which a lot of people don't realize, got the Duke job and made the Cameron Crazies famous, and has produced more NBA players than I think anybody can count at this point. You got Roy Williams, my sister's favorite, her secret man crush. She loves Roy Williams. She legit sent him a wedding invitation to her wedding, found out his address. Yeah, it's a little crazy. He didn't come, but it's all right.
Can you imagine if he did come, though?
She would have left Travis. They wouldn't have been a wedding. But I mean, he won 2 championships in North Carolina. Started at Kansas, won 1 there. Another Hall of Fame coach. Those 3 right there, you're talking 3 of the top 6 or 7 coaches of all time. They're all from the same state. In college basketball, yeah, sorry. So and you got the last guy, Dale Earnhardt, second best, either second or third best driver of all time.
Just go with his number.
Number 3.
Number 3.
Boom.
Number 3, the Intimidator. Everybody knows it. Just made a right turn when he should have made a left one time, and that was unfortunately.
Jesus Christ!
That's why he's up here. Listen, gotta follow traffic signs, bro.
Yo,
traffic
my
signs.
man said he made a right turn instead of making a left. Yo,
I knew that was
Bill has
coming.
the line of the show twice, back-to-back weeks. Last week he was taking the D. This week he's making a right turn instead of a left.
Dale took the D too fast into the wall, and that was it. But no, listen. All kidding aside, he's Richard Petty's probably still the most synonymous name with NASCAR racing, but if there's a 1A, it's Dale Earnhardt.
Yes, that's true.
And Dale Earnhardt was more responsible for making NASCAR a household sport that people started to watch every Sunday. And the dude took no prisoners on the track, man. He got.
I know 7 race car drivers, and Dale.
He's one of them. Yes, correct. Dale Earnhardt. You take the most casual person who's never watched a NASCAR race in their life, they probably know who Dale Earnhardt is, though. And like I said, he was responsible for NASCAR growing into what it is today. He's the biggest reason. He won a lot of races. He's tied for number 2 overall. Won a couple titles, and he got the nickname the Intimidator for a reason, man. I mean, he was not a guy you mess with on the track. I grew up watching him, so. But he definitely belongs on here. He's like I said, he's not one. Richard Petty's the best driver ever, but he's either number 2 or number 3.
Cottrell, introduce us to Atlanta, the ATL. Shout it!
All right. Let's get to it. Let's see who we got. All right, so starting off hot. We got human highlight. My man, Daryl Wilkins, Dominique Wilkins.
Dominique.
I don't know.
Daryl Wilkins works at Giant Food, bro.
Dominique Wilkins, one of the best dunkers of all time. I mean, even outside of dunking, though, like what he was as an athlete back then. I mean, he was a true superstar to the game. I always liked him because after he would dunk, he'd always have to tell somebody about it. Seeing his dunk contest, against Michael Jordan, special. And he's definitely one of those guys. When you think Hawks, you can't not think Dominique Wilkins. Then we got the Braves on here back to back. We got Maddox.
I wanted to see if he get it right. He didn't get it right.
And Chipper, don't call me Larry Jones.
Larry.
I was asking him I wanted him to do it in order, left to right, and I wanted to just by the picture. I wanted to see.
Oh no, I know Chipper. Chipper's on the right. Greg's a hefty fella. Not literally, but in the face, he's a little hefty.
That's Chipper.
No.
What, bro? All the white people look the same, Cottrell? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
No.
That's messed up, bro.
All right, so from left to right, it's Dominique, then Chipper, then Maddox.
Anywho. But regardless, I know what he was like on the mound because he beat my team in the World Series. Wasn't too happy about that. 4-time, I think 4-time, right? Cy Young, 3-time or 4-time,
somewhere around.
Talking about Greg Maddox.
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now.
I believe it was 3 or 4. Chipper's got an MVP.
Greg Maddox won like 13 Gold Gloves in a row too,
which is insane.
It is.
And then we got prime time at the end. Nope, greatest DB. Not much needs to be said. Some of the best. You get the best one-liners with him. He told the Giants, what pick do you guys have? They tried to make him take a test. he said, I'm not going to be there by pick 10. And, he's got his gold jacket. Now he's coaching Jackson State, doing his thing, but he was a monster on the field.
Missing a toe.
That's too funny.
The show's falling apart in the last 5 minutes.
It's okay. Primetime's best cover corner of all time. Probably the second greatest athlete ever to play sports. Just, overall athlete. I'm not talking about player. I'm talking about athlete.
Who's won?
Sport. What?
Bo.
Bo Jackson.
Okay.
Bo. But good list on both ends. I know where I'm going. Where are you going? What, are you going Atlanta or are you going Carolina? You going with the prestigious cultures and the left turns? Or are you going with pinpoint pitching? Are you going with the human highlight? Are you going with the best cover corner of all time?
I'm going with Atlanta. They have of the 8 here, they have quite literally the greatest athlete between them. And as great as Carolina is, I like this Atlanta group just a little bit more in terms of greatness.
Bill.
So I thought I knew where I was going, but then I'm kind of breaking this down a different way. It's fairly interesting. It's more, do you value, individual, like actual athlete, the accolades, or are you talking about coaches? And then you got Dale Earnhardt's kind of as the X factor. I'm gonna go Atlanta. I'm gonna stick with my original thing. I'm gonna go with Atlanta.
Well, it was almost a sweep for Atlanta, the Phillies over Atlanta, but this is a sweep for Atlanta over Carolina. I got Atlanta too. I think that when I match them up, I think Dominique versus Earnhardt's very close. I think Larry, and I think the next two are athletes. And you go athlete, with Deion Sanders being, in my opinion, the best one on here. Best cover cornerback, second overall athlete of all time. You got Larry Jones. You got Larry and Greg Maddux. So Atlanta moves on. We only got a couple more preliminary matchups before we get to our bracket. Let's get to, you got to be kidding me. It's 8:58. Cottrell, going to start it.
Really,
all right, you got to be
Larry.
kidding me is TJ Dillashaw. We talked about him a little bit earlier, but for what you did, holding up that division as long as you did, and I picked you, so I'm upset that you made me be wrong, and I'm upset that you used steroids, and that wasn't a big enough slap in the face to the UFC. You had to fight with a shoulder that kept popping out of place. So this week for me, TJ Dillashaw.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Shally.
So for mine this week, I'm going with the combo of this will make you happy, Gene. I'm going with the combo of CJ Stroud and Ryan Day. 2 minutes to go in their game against Iowa from the 5-yard line, trying to boost Mr. CJ Stroud's Heisman profile even more. They decide to call a pass play instead of just kneeling it down when they're up by 34 points. Listen, man, I get it, is what it is, but most would call that Bush League. Game's in hand, game's over, you're on the 5, you're up by 40 points. Just kneel the ball, get off the field, have some class. But, I mean, I know it's a lot to ask for sometimes. So that's one of those things. If something weird happens, if somebody gets hurt, nobody feels bad for Ohio State at that point. Got the starters on the field with 2 minutes to go. So for this week, for me, easy, simple one, rubbing it in for no reason. I'm going with Ohio State, Ryan Day, CJ Stroud.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
It's factually inaccurate, though, because Kyle McCord was on the field like the last 6 minutes of the game.
Nah.
So you're going to love mine, Bill, because
Nice.
mine is Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers, listen, it's a very easy one for me this week. Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee show again and started trashing teammates, man. Like he said, let me just get the exact quotes for you. He said, if those guys have a problem with it, I'm right here. I'd love to have a conversation. Oh, sorry. That's his comments today. My apologies. But he said that essentially, like, if the players aren't making the plays, then they need to be off the field. They need to get off the field and let other people play. Aaron Rodgers wants to blame everyone on the team outside of Aaron Rodgers. Hey, Aaron, do you know why you're playing with Alan Lazard, Romeo Dubes, Christian Watson? Because you took $50 million. And when you're getting $50 million against the salary cap, that means you're so good, you don't need to pay $15 million. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Shut your mouth. Do me a favor and play football and be better at it and get your players involved and be a teammate of everybody that you're working with. You have Randall Cobb there. You have Robert Tonyan there. You have Alan Lazard there. You have Sammy Watkins there. Listen, I don't think they're the greatest weapons in the world, but I've seen Tom Brady get it done with worse. I've seen Tom Brady get it done with a guy playing Patton, playing both David Patton and Troy Brown playing on both sides of the ball, like it was college. So I don't want to hear it. I'm done. Deion Branch was a Super Bowl MVP. Call it like it is. So for this week, Aaron Rodgers, shut your mouth.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Guys, it's 9:02. We did our best. We got done. Any final thoughts, Cottrell?
Of course, already told you, but happy birthday. Appreciate everything you do for the show. It's super unfortunate though that this upcoming weekend you got to hold another loss. Last week, a couple weeks ago you lost to Michigan. Now you got to hold this loss to Ohio State. But I hope it's a good birthday up until then. But come Saturday at noon, we are mortal enemies until Saturday about 2:15 when Ohio State's up 25.
Well, listen, you ain't got to worry about it. Georgia's going to win this weekend.
I was just gonna say, he's dude. I told you, he doesn't we don't even talk about the Big Ten anymore. Like we talk about Michigan, Ohio State, and he doesn't want to talk about the rest of it. Like he's fully back into Bulldog mode. Like he's probably got a Mark Rick T-shirt in his house somewhere. Like it is what it is.
I think he just bought a pug.
Hey, Uga.
I love pugs.
Gene would get a pug and name it Uga.
Any final thoughts, Shelly?
No, I mean, just again, I mean, it's I've said it to you twice already, but on air. Happy birthday, and again, everything you do for the show. Been a friend for a long time. Even better human being. So, happy birthday. Hope you have a great night. And I'm sure your weekend will be fine because I'm sure Georgia's going to win. So, doesn't matter about Penn State, but go Bulldogs.
Go Phillies. My final thoughts. Thank you so much to Dante and ECG for running the board for us, putting the graphics up. Nice happy birthday. Thank you, Cottrell and Shally, for everything you guys do. This is a team effort. Thank you to ECG, Dante, and thank you so much to Sports Empire Network, Freddie Henderson, Key, Dante. I appreciate all that you guys do. That's it. I got a work meeting I got to go to for tomorrow morning, and a couple guys from work are taking me out. So I got to be there like 24 minutes from now. So that's Wire to Wire, Show 107, signing out. Love y'all. Thank you.